Motorola It feels like an eternity since the Moto G6 series was first leaked, but we finally saw the full lineup officially revealed yesterday. But how do the specs differ from the G5 range? For starters, the Moto G6 and G6 Plus both feature an 18:9 Full HD display, as opposed to the G5 Duo's 16:9 Full HD screens. The new phones offer more screen real estate in a similar form factor, owing to the 18:9 screen ratio. Indian smartphone brands are losing ground to Chinese manufacturers in their home market. Not a single one made the list of the 5 biggest players in Q3. Samsung is tied with Xiaomi for first. The 2018 pairing also featured dual cameras, in the form of a 1.2MP 5MP combo. Last year's devices offer single cameras, a 1.3MP shooter for the G5 and a 1.2MP snapper for the G5 Plus, so those wanting portrait mode will want to check out the new phones. Both Plus models deliver 4K recording, but the G6 has to make do with 1080p, 60fps video recording, still smoother than the G5's 1080p, 30fps video. What kind of horsepower to expect? Motorola The power department sees each variant take a step above its predecessor. The Moto G6 packs a Snapdragon 450 chipset, 8 Cortex-A53 cores, featuring a smaller 14nm manufacturing process that should result in better battery life compared to the G5's Snapdragon 430. Meanwhile, the G6 Plus offers a Snapdragon 630. You can reasonably expect a slight bump in speed, loading times, and responsiveness, as the SoC is a direct successor to the power-sipping Snapdragon 625 seen in the G5 Plus. Moving to the RAM and storage fields, we see the G6 equipped with either 3GB or 4GB of RAM, and 32GB or 64GB of expandable storage. Last year's model delivered 2GB, 3GB RAM and 16GB of storage. This means the cheapest G6 will have 3GB of RAM and 32GB of storage, as opposed to last year's 2GB, 16GB entry-level option. The G6 Plus model comes in with 4GB or 6GB of RAM, while storage is available in 64GB or 128GB flavors. These stats are more in line with flagship phones, if anything. By comparison, the G5 Plus offers 2GB to 4GB of RAM and 32GB, 64GB of expandable storage. The entry-level 2018 model, 4GB, 64GB, certainly makes for a more capable proposition than the entry-level 2017 variant, 2GB, 32GB. Moto G6 Moto G5 display 5.7-inch IPS LCD 2160 by 1080 18:9 5.0-inch IPS LCD 1920 by 1080 16:9 Processor Qualcomm Snapdragon 450 Adreno 506 GPU Qualcomm Snapdragon 430 Adreno 505 GPU RAM 3GB 4GB 2GB 3GB storage 32GB 64GB expandable up to 128GB 16GB expandable up to 128GB rear camera main 12MP f 1.8 secondary 5MP 13MP f 2.0 front camera 8MP 5MP fingerprint scanner sees battery 3000 mAh 2800 mAh Software Android 8.0 Oreo Android 7.0 Nougat Dimensions 153.8 by 72.3 by 8.3 mm 167 grams 150.2 x 74 by 7.7 to 9.7 mm 144.5 grams In terms of endurance, the G6 offers a 200 mAh increase over the G5's 2800 mAh battery, and the more efficient chipset should also make for longer battery life. The new Plus model serves up a 3,200 mAh battery, compared to 3,000 mAh in the G5 Plus. The 2017 phone stood out in this department anyway, so you probably won't need to worry about all-day stamina. When your battery runs down and it's time to charge, you'll be grabbing USB Type-C cables for the 2018 Duo and micro USB for last year's devices. Your feelings toward this will probably depend on whether you have more micro USB or Type-C accessories. Moto G6 Plus Moto G5 Plus display 5.7-inch IPS LCD 2160 by 1080 18:9, 5.2-inch IPS LCD 1920 by 1080 16:9, processor Qualcomm Snapdragon 630 Adreno 508 GB Qualcomm Snapdragon 625 Adreno 506 GPU RAM 4 GB, 6 GB 2 GB, 3 GB, 4 GB storage 64 GB, 128 GB expandable up to 128 GB 32 GB, 64 GB expandable up to 128 GB rear camera main, 12 MP f1.7 secondary, 5 MP f2.212 MP f1.7 front camera 8 MP 5 MP fingerprint scanner ESCs battery 3200 mAh 3000 mAh software Android 8.0 Oreo Android 7.0 Nougat dimensions 160 by 75.5 by 8.0 mm 167 grams 150.2 mm by 74.0 mm by 7.7 mm to 9.7 mm 155 grams. As for security features, all four phones feature a front-mounted fingerprint scanner. All four phones let you use the scanner for gesture-based navigation, such as a leftward swipe to go back or a tap to go home. The four handsets also share two other features, in the form of a headphone jack and water-repellent nano coating. As a result, you won't need a dongle for your old headphones, but definitely don't go swimming with one of these devices in hand. What about the Moto G6 Play? Moto G6 Play Motorola. There is one addition to the G series this year in the form of the Moto G6 Play, and it seems like a sideways move rather than a clear-cut upgrade over the Moto G5. For one, it features either a Snapdragon 427 quad-core processor in the US or an octa-core Snapdragon 430. The latter chip is the same one seen in the Moto G5. The phones also match each other for RAM and storage, offering 2 GB, 3 GB RAM and 16 GB, 32 GB variants. But the Moto G5 has a sharper 5-inch 1080p display, 16:9, as opposed to the 6-inch 1440 by 720 screen, 18:9, on the Play. Moto G6 Play Moto G5 display 5.9-inch IPS LCD 1440 by 720 18:9, 5.0-inch IPS LCD 1920 by 1080 16:9, processor Qualcomm Snapdragon 427 Adreno 308 USA, Qualcomm Snapdragon 430 Adreno 505 GP Qualcomm Snapdragon 430 Adreno 505 GPU RAM 2 GB, 3 GB 2 GB, 3 GB storage 16 GB, 32 GB expandable up to 128 GB 16 GB, 32 GB expandable up to 128 GB rear camera 13 MP 13 MP f2.0 front camera 8 MP 5 MP USA, 5 MP fingerprint scanner ESCs battery 4000 mAh 2800 mAh software Android 8.0 Oreo upgraded to Android 8.0 Oreo dimensions 155.4 by 72.2 by 9.1 mm 180 grams 144.3 x 73 by 9.5 mm 144.5 grams. The G6 Play's biggest strength is its battery life, serving up a 4000 mAh cell that should yield 2 days of moderate usage. The Moto G5 comes in at 2800 mAh, which makes for a massive difference on paper. In fact, the manufacturer claims up to 36 hours of juice for the Play, as opposed to the G5's all-day battery. If battery life is important to you above all else, you'll want the Play over the G5. Value photography over battery life? There's really not much to choose between the two devices in this regard, as they both deliver 13 MP f2.0 single cameras on the rear. The G6 Play differs from the G5 for selfies though, featuring an 8 MP shooter compared to the G5's 5 MP. Price, of course, who cares about a phone with budget specs if it lacks a budget price? Last year saw the Moto G5 Plus come to the US for $229, but the buyers missed out on the G5. The smaller model had a €199 starting price in Europe. This time around, the standard G6 is coming to the US with a $249 starting price, while the Plus model will miss the States. It will have a €299 price tag in Europe. Some people might think that the most important feature in a smartphone is its display size. Others believe it comes down to a phone's processor performance, or the amount of RAM, or how much storage. The G6 Play is the cheapest of the new lot at $199, making it part of a growing number of budget phones that pack a pocket-friendly 18:9 screen ratio. But unless you value a large battery above all else, it seems like you're getting a lot more bang for your buck with a G6 for just $50 extra.